Welcome everyone for episode 2 of our podcast series. In this episode, Mrs S really speaks to you a little bit about the Morehouse way. What are some of the components? What are some of the ingredients? What are some of the underpinning principles? And how does Morehouse really want people to feel? What are some of the core aspects? And also really thinks about the importance of relationships, why relationships are so central and at the heart of Morehouse. And Mrs S really gives us some powerful pearls of wisdom and examples of this. I really hope that you enjoy it as much as I did being part of this conversation.
Having the privilege of visiting so many different organisations and being in so many sectors and contexts, when I came and visited you and Stephen and Morehouse, there was something almost intangible that I could just feel, this essence of the ethos and how I was received and how I felt. And I just wondered, and I know sometimes it can be hard to describe or capture, if you could speak to a little bit about how you want people to feel, the kids, the staff, other agencies, about Morehouse, if they were to describe it or if they left with a feeling.
Yes. I think you've touched on, for me, the very core of who we are and what I was hoping to achieve. From the beginning, even although we did not have a lot of money, for me it was important that we created an environment of the highest quality. And it was important that staff understood that parents, families, professionals, it was our responsibility to create an environment where they felt respected and accepted. And so from day one, it was important to me that I modelled for staff acceptance, warmth, and was very, very clear with staff that respect for each other, including families, which my experience, my professional experience prior to opening the school, there was a sense that families were being judged, particularly children who were not achieving, and there was an atmosphere, there was an attitude of judging families. And for me, it was important that when anyone came to our organisation, the first thing that they experienced was warmth and acceptance. And so from day one, that's been important to me. In an induction, it's actually one of the questions that we ask new staff. How were you received when you joined the organisation? And I'll say to staff, what's on the tin needs to be in the tin. So tell me, were you received warmly? Do you feel you belong? Do you feel valued? And their response to that is a litmus test. And for Stephen and I, who normally do that session and induction, it's not just lip service to those questions. It's important that we're testing the water. Is the culture still the same as when I started the organisation? And so for me, that's a really important, fundamental part of who we are and our culture. But we have to invest in it. It's not something that comes naturally, and it's something that can be lost very easily. And it starts with when we're taking staff on. It starts at the induction process. It starts in people when they apply to us. How do we respond to them? How are they treated in interview? And so it's a complex but important process. And each of the elements of our culture, we need to revisit, and we need to reassure ourselves that what we're saying is actually what people are experiencing.
And that's such a beautiful thing. And I think I really felt that is not just talking the talk, but walking the walk, that real modelling the model. And I think your sense of what's on the tin is in the tin. And, you know, it's that whole sense of what you've just captured there of how are our values infused and embedded and felt. You know, it's that James Baldwin quote, I don't believe what you say because I see what you do. So a real sort of integrity that I sense in that. But also I think, just to pick up something you said that's really powerful, is not, well, we're here and we've arrived. It's an ongoing investment and commitment. It's like a flower doesn't, you know, bloom once. You have to keep on watering it over and over and over again. And so I really think that's a powerful thing for people to hear, of it's an ongoing, intentional commitment to learning, to who we are, to the organisational immune system. So, yeah, I think that's beautiful. What other kind of messages do you really want staff to hold on to, and the kids to hold on to, about this matters to us, this is what makes us us, and these are kind of our core ways of being and how we want you to feel?
Yes. I think there can be a challenge in what I'm trying to get staff to understand and for children to experience. There's the dilemma of if we saturate the children with the best nighties, the best bed linen, all the cosy, lovely, nurturing things that I want children to experience.
Yeah.
When we have conversations about that with staff, it's not rare for a staff to say to me, but the child does not have that at home. And my message is that may be the case, but it's our responsibility to saturate these children with love, experiences, positive regard, everything that we can do, and make sure that the children experience, both in terms of their environment, in terms of their physical environment, the quality of clothes that we make sure they have, all of the little, small, important things that make us who we are and give us a message of how valued we are. It's those things that I have to reassure staff are important. It's not about judging the family. It's not about saying what the family has or is able to provide is not good enough. It's about saying, this is what we believe you are worth, and it's our job to make sure that the richness of what we can give children is their memory of what they might want to give to their children. So it's an investment in the next generation too.
Yeah. There's such intergenerational and legacies and but also that sense of what I'm picking up, and correct me if I'm wrong, is just that real sense of like, I see you, you matter, you're important, and that real feeling of you're a unique individual. And I know Morehouse does so much to really harness each individual child's skills and gifts and interests, but also that sense of we value and what might be possible. And I think really humanize, not seeing people as statistics or tick box, but that real uniqueness. I've heard some of the bits from you, from the kids, from social media, of like some of those, it says small things, but it's big things, you know, that they land or they leave a heartprint. Can you give some examples of some of the things that Morehouse has done or does?
Yes, I think it started from trying to get the staff to understand the experience of our children before they arrived at our door. My experience in social work was that families did not often get the opportunity to celebrate the success of their children. So from an early point, I wanted to put prize givings in. And so twice a year, we have prize givings. And at those prize givings, the message is about we value you as family and the support network that the children have. And we want you to experience, alongside the children, success. And we want you to be able to celebrate in whatever small way that the youngster has achieved something. And it might only be having achieved gone to school every day, and before they arrived at our door, they didn't do that. And so it's about bringing the community together to celebrate, sometimes in an exaggerated way, but sometimes it's important. So, for example, if a child comes in the day before the prize giving, it's important that that's acknowledged and that the staff find something unique and special, and that that child has the same experience as a child that's been with us 4, 5, 6 years. And so it's about finding and creating events that take the opportunity to reflect the uniqueness, the wonderful things that children can do with the right support. And so prize givings, prom, it's important that our children are able to go and get dresses for the prom, or our boys normally have Highland outfits, which is something that a child many years ago chose. So now I have to pay the bill for Highland outfits at every prize giving. So and the girls getting their hair done, and all of the things that in mainstream schools children would have experienced. Why is that not something our children should experience? Of course it is. Families being supported to celebrate their children. There may be years that have gone before that they've been judged and that the children have been rejected, and the family have a sense of hopelessness. Pictures of parents with children, all of those extra little bits that say to families, your children are achieving. We value you as parents, as part of the team, so therefore you have to share in the pleasure of being part of the team. So prom, prize givings, Christmas lunch, Santa coming when a 17-year-old does not believe in Santa. We do silly things, but I just think it's the opportunity. Even if children don't engage necessarily in some of what we're doing, we've shown them things that at a later point in their life, they may want to have Santa for their children. They may want to support their children to go to the prom. And so it's about a community celebrating and bringing the family and carers and professionals together. So events and memories are at the core of our way of working with children. It's part of our repairing, nurturing journey for children and families.
And I think I've heard you say so many times that importance of events and memories, and I think you're filling their kind of memory banks and their treasure boxes. But I think what you've just said there, which is so beautiful and links to the evolution is not blaming or shaming or fragmenting parents or carers, but really creating that relational wealth and those relational networks, and really caring for the carers and modelling that and creating this sense of community, that community care, which I think, but also a real thread of celebration. And I guess something else to add to that maybe people might be listening but haven't quite seen is it's not just we're going to put on a prom. There's so much thought and care, as you said, into the dresses, into the outfits, into, you know, the way that the music and how people feel. And it's all those little details, isn't it, into the Morehouse bears that the kids get, or there's so much that you really hold in mind. And I know that when I was with you and visiting, it wasn't just like, oh, a kid likes art or a kid likes horses. There was so many beautiful examples of, oh, we're going to really find what makes them spark or makes them light up, and we're going to really sort of enrich and cultivate that. And that is a real special, unique thing. I guess another thing I was struck by, and I know you had some stories at different times you may or may not share, but about it's not just you're in Morehouse and then see you later. There's a real sense of the long-term, intergenerational kind of lifespan approach of Morehouse, and the relationships and the longevity. I wonder if you could talk a bit about kind of examples of that, or why that matters, or where the foundations of that comes from.
Yeah. I think that from day one, from the opening of the school, I wanted staff in a safe way to try and maintain relationships with our children after they left. I think when you say to a child, trust me, and I'm going to be there for you, it's important that you and the child understand the boundaries of that relationship. But I think it's also important that if you're asking children to trust you and invest in you, having come from a place where that possibly was very difficult for them, it's a real responsibility, I believe, on adults. And I think when you're talking about relationships, I think that there has to be honesty and integrity in the conversations. So we've had over 1,000 children in our schools and our services over time. And there has to be a reality that we cannot and we will not keep relationships going with all of the children that came through our services. Some children, when they move into adulthood, don't want that. And that's their decision, and it's appropriate for them. But for me, I always wanted the opportunity, if children who moved into adulthood needed us and wanted us, that we would be there for them. And I have two examples of that. The first 3, 4, 5 children that came to the school are now in their 50s. And I'm thinking of 2 girls in particular that are both grannies now and have grandchildren. And one of the girls, unfortunately, is still very damaged from her early life experience. And so her and I, we have a relationship where she can phone me if she's in trouble or she's just needing reassurance. And that's continued nearly for 40 years, nearly. And she'll go through a phase where she'll phone a lot and then she'll go very quiet. And for me, she'll dictate the pace and my availability, and that's okay. We have a second girl who, again, is in her 50s. And she is now a foster parent for an end of life plan for a baby. And so we have contact with a lot of children that are now adults, and we have a school Facebook page where our former pupils can keep in touch. And so we hear snippets of where they're at and how life is going for them. But very early on in our school journey, I recognised that a lot of our children who were going into adulthood, their relationships with families may have been fractured and not repaired. The availability of family and friends for them in adulthood might not be there. And I remember getting a phone call from one of our former pupils, and the children, some call me Mrs S. So the phone rang and it was one of our former pupils. And he said, Mrs S, I'm at my mum's and I can't wake her up. I don't know what's wrong. And I said, okay. So we sent staff down to his mum's address. And sadly, his mum had passed away and he had nobody. He had nobody to help him with advice. So, as we do, we got him organised, got him a suit, helped him with the planning. And then after the funeral, we were there for him to help him through his grieving journey. And from that experience, I recognised that we needed to do something formal. And so we established what we call the In Touch team. So from an early point till today, we have a team of staff who can be available to a former pupil for professional support, counselling, advice about electricity, advice if they get themselves into trouble, which sometimes they do. And so we have an In Touch team that is there. What we do is we try and establish relationships with our young people when they're about 15, before they're ready to leave, so that when they leave, they have a familiarity with the team. And if ever they need support from when they leave us into being 50 and 51 and 52, we can be there for them. And it's something that I think local authorities have not been able to do because of pressure on services, pressure in financial problems that local authorities are having now. And so for me, it was important that if we're saying, trust us and we want to have a relationship with you, we need to think about the long term. And we need to be available to our former pupils in a time of need. And so today we have the In Touch team that started based on goodwill of staff, and it's grown. And we have lots of examples of very satisfying experiences that we've got from being able to help young people.
Yeah. And I think there's so many beautiful things and around that of, that man who called, who, had his mum who died, that you were part of his, an important part of that network being the secure base and the safe haven, but he felt I can pick up the phone and someone's there, and that sense of relational connectedness and social connectedness and that community. And I think, and then for that to go on to create the In Touch team, and I know that's expanded hugely, but when we think about how going back to nursing and being clinical, or going back to some local authorities where relationships are temporary and fleeting, to create something that's, cradle to grave, womb to tomb, that is continuity of care and creating those reparative relationships. There's just so much within there. And so I just really, want to honour and sort of celebrate that. And I guess that leads us to relationships being at the heart. So when you are bringing Morehouse kind of staff, and I know you've said you've been so lucky to have some beautiful staff, what would you describe you're looking for, or that you would say, oh, they're a Morehouse person, or those are the qualities I want?
Yeah. I think for me, values is more important than qualifications in most of the roles within the organisation. I think passion to make a difference in people's lives, both in terms of their colleagues and in terms of the children. These are important elements that we're looking for when we're recruiting staff. I think that if you get people who share our values and are passionate about being able to make a difference, we can offer training and support and introduce them to theoretical perspectives and research that will help them build the need for expertise and developing skills and understanding of where our children are starting from and what their needs are. So for me, I think the person is the most important starting point when we're recruiting. I think that it's taken us a long time to create policies and procedures that catch the people that don't fit at an earlier stage, because we can have people who come with the best of motives, but they've not necessarily got to the stage in their own journey that they can help children grow and heal, and in fact can come along and the work that they need to do, they should be doing for themselves, would take up too much energy and time, because we need adults that know themselves, recognise their own journey and draw strength from their own journey in a way that our children are not here for a therapeutic experience for staff. Our children are here and need adults that can hit the ground running, that are human, that have not necessarily finished their own journey and their own understanding of their own needs and development, but that they are healthy enough, that they can have enough space, energy and skill to listen to the needs of children and be there to offer what the children need. Because we can't have children coming along and spending years with us, and those years having been wasted and not full of the most therapeutic, nurturing experience that was necessary. So there's a balance in taking people with the right values, accepting people. We're human, we're all on a journey, but making sure that the staff that come along are ready, able, and at a place in their own development, that they have the capacity to love and nurture children where the children are in their journey.
Hugely. And as we said, there's the tricky tightrope and the balance of the both and, but it sounds, for you, such a central core aim is how we leave people feeling, and that the kids coming into Morehouse are marinated in lots of those beautiful, reparative, healing, therapeutic moments. And so the adults and how their energy is and how they make people feel and how they show up is such a central core of that. And you've captured so many of it, but if you wanted to either talk to external partners or new staff coming in to Morehouse, or it might be people who need a little reminder, what would you say are two or more, if you want, messages about this is what we stand for, this is what matters, this is our absolute heart?
I think the strongest message is respect within our organisation for each other, and love and respect for human elements, the human beings that we are, and how hard we need to work to make sure that we are welcoming, that we do nurture both children and staff and visitors. And I think that new staff, just this morning, I was coming into the office, and a staff member that's been with us a couple of years came up with some comment, and she said, "We are a family in this organisation." And I said, "Well, we're a big family." And she smiled, and she started talking about one or two of the staff that we have. And she was saying that she could not believe when she joined us how warm she was received. And it lasted, is the word she used. It's still the same. And I think that getting the message over, we are all responsible. Yes, I have the title managing director, but I need to model what I'm expecting from the community. And both children and staff need to see that. And I need to love and nurture my team, because they certainly love and nurture me back. I'm treated in such a loving, caring way by my team. And I'm hoping it's a two-way process on a good day. There are days.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not superhuman. But it is, I think, that reciprocal, relational aspect is so important. But also what that member of staff said to you speaks such volumes. And of course, different people will have different experiences. But firstly, it fits with what you were saying about what's on the tin and it needs to match in the tin, about how she felt received and welcomed. If the walls could talk, what would they say? But also that it wasn't just a one-off, that it was an ongoing, sustainable experience. And that's such a huge bit, isn't it? It's that taking our brains and nervous systems to the gym over and over and over again for the kids, but for the staff. And also really here, and I know we're going to talk about that more, but that centre of it cascades, doesn't it? So how we treat each other or how we receive, and you know, the respect, as you said, at all of those different levels. So yeah, that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing a live example from this morning. We've spoken lots about the feelings that we want people to leave with and the messages. Is there anything you feel in that part that we haven't covered, of when you're like, I want, when people enter into one of our schools or one of their homes, them to feel or pick up ... Anything else you wanted to add about that?
I think that for me, it's more than the everyday experience of children and staff. Again, an example, we have reunions every so many years, and we had our 25th reunion celebration. And some of our former pupils and former staff had came to our reunion, and we had the photographs up, and we were talking about memories. And this 12-year-old girl came up to me and she put her hand on my arm, and she said, "Thank you, Mrs S, for what you did for my daddy, because you have made him a special daddy." And so for me, it's about, we're on a journey, and it's an important journey. We don't know where the end destination is, but we need to keep checking that we're on the right roads. And we need to recognise that it's not just for today, it's for tomorrow. It's for adults that, having come through our services, have become adults who are more able to cope, adults whose self-esteem has increased, adults who are taking into the next generation an ability to have dealt with some of their trauma, an ability to recognise that they have worth, and an ability to recognise some of the messages about good parenting and nurture, that they can take that into their next role as parents, adults, colleagues in their work environment. So for me, it's about when I'm not here, and that's part of why we're doing what we're doing in these podcasts. When I'm not here, I hope that staff that I leave behind carry forward the importance of a relational approach to everything that we do, and carry forward the challenge of making sure that we are living to our values. And for me, that would be the most wonderful legacy, that it carries on.
And I love that so much about the legacies of the kids that you have cared for, and the legacy and the heartprints that you have left, that hopefully people have taken parts in their hearts and in their heads and to follow that forward. But there's such a feeling of what you just said there about future focused and being visionary and being aspirational. And we know so much what we're dealing with sometimes in cultures is reactive and the present day. And what you just said is the antithesis of that, of no, we want to think big, we want to dream big, we want to work with that person, and at the core, those relational ways of being. So I think you've just captured that so beautifully, and I'm so excited to sort of explore and deepen that further. But thank you for giving us a little flavour of some of the ways of being and making people feel. It's just a gorgeous thing to and privilege to listen to. So thank you.
Thank you.